Hello and welcome to Channel 2S. I'm your host, Second Soundwave. You've seen the parts, you've seen the build, and now it's time to see how the Master Grade Zeta Gundam 2.0 stacks up as a completed model. This kit came out in 2005 for an MSRP of 5,000 yen, and is regularly cited in the Gunpla community as being the absolute best version of the Zeta Gundam. But is this decade-old kit really that good? Let's find out. The Zeta Gundam has always been one of my favorite Gundam designs for more than a few reasons. The first is its basic appearance. The Zeta's tall, lanky build sets it apart from the rest of the early UC Gundams, but the colors and design elements make sure to remind you that you're looking at the successor to the legendary RX-78. The armor is flat and angular, giving it the appearance of a stealth bomber. The delta wings on the backpack reinforce this comparison, although they do bring with them a rather annoying flaw. The weight of those wings, combined with the high-heel design on the feet, results in a kit that is both very back-heavy and a little difficult to stand up. Fortunately, there's an accessory or two in the box that can alleviate this. Back to the subject of aesthetics, the Zeta isn't as detailed as you might expect. The color separation's all there, there just aren't nearly as many panel lines and other surface details they'd expect to see in a modern Master Grade. Surface detailing isn't something I usually give much thought to, but it's very noticeable when it's absent. As expected with a Master Grade, stickers are minimal. In addition to the usual eyes and cameras, there's a handful of tiny yellow triangles for the arms, legs, and rifle. Only thing that bugs me is how they're cut a tiny bit smaller than the indentations they go into. It's something that I noticed while I was building the kit, but it's not nearly as bad as you might think once the kit's all together. And if the model looks a bit plain to you right now, don't worry, a sheet of dry transfers as well as peel-off marking seals are included. I originally planned on applying some of these before filming the video, but I decided against it in favor of sticking with the basic build for demonstration purposes. If I had to bring up one big issue with this kit from an aesthetic standpoint right now, it would be the gate placement. Absolutely nothing on this kit is undergated, and about half it is cast in various shades of blue plastic. And as any seasoned Gunpla builder can tell you, that's a recipe for nub marks. Nub marks everywhere. Some of the gate connections are absolutely enormous, like this one, which makes nub removal even more of a headache. If you're both bad denubbing parts and heavily bothered by nub marks, this might be a kit you'll want to pass on. Now that we've got aesthetics out of the way, let's look at the articulation. Starting up here at the head, it's got a nice double joint bend downwards and upwards, and it can actually tip side to side as well, quite nicely. It's got a full 360-degree rotation. And one thing that does bug me about this that's not necessarily related to articulation, but the clip that holds the head upwards is a little loose, so it is pretty easy to knock it down a bit as you're moving it around, and I wish it had a bit more firm of a locking point. Now, moving on to the backpack, there is a little bit of articulation here. You can kind of move this up and down, and then you can move the flaps, but neither of those things are really meant for the mech mode. Right now, up here at the shoulders, we got sort of forward and back movement right here. Pretty nice, pretty nice. You got a full 360 right here. This flap comes out quite a bit farther than it needs to because the arm only comes out to about here, which is kind of a shame. There's a bicep swivel at the bicep where you'd expect it to be. Double jointed elbow that comes up very nicely. It's got that kind of double O Gundam style wrist joint where it bends, where it connects to the arm. In addition to that, you have this really weird bit of movement where like the arm goes side to side, and that's not joint slop, it's actually designed so you can move it this way. I have absolutely no idea why. It seems like the kind of thing you'd want to avoid in a kit. And the hands themselves are the standard Master Grade 2.0 hands, so you got a hinge at the palm, you got a ball joint at the thumb, ball joint trigger finger, and then the other three fingers are designed so that they're on a single hinge out of the box. But if you take a knife and you very carefully cut down between them, you can separate them onto ball joints just like the other two fingers. Moving down to the lower body, there's only a single joint in the torso, but it's actually got an alright range of movement. Like, you know, you can bend it forward and back and side to side pretty alright. It's just, you know, the swivels. The swivel leaves a bit to be desired because this is about all you're going to get. But again, that's probably better than you get on a high grade, and considering how much stuff there is going on in here, it doesn't really surprise me that they weren't able to fit in a second joint. Although what they were able to still fit in, thankfully, is the one gimmick that every Master Grade has, the opening cockpit in the pilot you cannot see even when the cockpit's open. Because, you know, who needs to see the poorly painted pilot in there? So moving down to the hips, we got hip skirts here that are actually on double joint things so they can swing down or swing out, and then the front skirt swings up to here. And if you move the tail fin out of the way, the back skirt can actually pretty much come up a full 90, so that's obviously pretty impressive. And the leg itself comes up forward about 90, backwards it also goes backwards about 90, but it only comes out to about here, which is, again, just like with the arms, kind of disappointing. Now, I don't like moving this guy's hips that much, because the joint section itself there, as you're moving it, has a tendency to spread. And it's kind of hard to get in there and squeeze it back together, and I kind of wish that connection was a bit more secure. I don't really want to cement it because it's a moving section, so yeah, it's not a big issue, but it's just a little nuisance. Then moving down from there, we got thigh swivel, and then we have a kneecap that can move in and out a little bit. We got a double jointed knee. It's got a nice little kind of, I don't know if you can see that, but there's like a piston back there that kind of moves separately from the rest of it. And then once you have the knee bent, you're going to get about that much bend out of it, so pretty good. Pretty good. The front section here moves out of the way of the foot. I think this moves, although I honestly can't tell if it's moving on a joint or if it's just wiggling in its slot, because I'm pretty sure this might not be supposed to move. The foot itself at the ankle goes back pretty far and forward all right, and then the toe itself can bend forward further. There's a hinge right here for transformation that actually exposes a pretty cool little piston, but again, that's for transformation, not so much for posing. And then you got a little bit of swing side to side, and you got a little bit of ankle tilt, and that's about it. So in the outward movement on both the arms and the legs, this guy leaves quite a bit to be desired, but for the most part, I think for what the kit is, for how old it is, I think it's got some alright articulation, and I'm pretty happy with it from that angle. Now that articulation is all said and done, it's time to take a look at the accessories. First up here is the shield, and well, I think I can sum up my thoughts on this in a little different format than usual. Excuse me, sir? Oh, hello there, Camille. How you liking that new Gundam I designed for you? Pretty cool, isn't it? Yeah, about that. I think you forgot to put a shield on it? Oh, yes, shield. Well, Oh, you see that thing on the arm, that red thing? You mean the battering ram? Battering ram? Oh, nah, no. That's not a battering ram, kid. That's a shield. That's a, it's got like an I-fuel generator in it. Yeah, it's got an I-fuel generator, so, you'll be totally fine. Go out there and knock him dead, kid. Sure. Okay. See you then. Whew. Note to self. Make shield for Zeta Gundam. Yeah, quite frankly, I wouldn't be surprised if that's how it went down. Anyway, back to your normally scheduled programming. So, this is the shield. It's got a little slidey thing on the back that goes in and out for transformation. There's a hinge here. There's a hinge here. You can kind of move it around and stuff. You take this peg. You got a hole right here. You kind of pop it into that hole. And once it's in that hole, you have literally the worst shield ever made. I have no idea what he's supposed to block with this, but I mean, at least you can rotate it, so maybe if he like moves it really fast, he can like maybe block one shot at a time or something, but it does rotate. The hinges mean you can kind of have it sort of up like this. This is how I think they actually displayed it on the box, and it looks pretty cool. It looks alright, but still, I mean, I would never go into a battle with a shield like this. Fortunately, defense isn't all the Zeta Gundam has going for it, because it also has a very cool, very long beam rifle. This thing pops right into the hand. It's a 2.0 style hand, so not the best connection. I'm not really a big fan of these hands. I much prefer the swap out wing style hands, but I don't know, a lot of people don't like those either. It seems like there's no real good master grade hand design, because they all have their ups and downs. And if I went knocky around this a bit, the rifle would probably fall out, but for now, you know, it's in there pretty solid. And you can kind of tuck it under his arm. The back sticks out quite a bit, so you can't quite have it tucked into his elbow, but you can stick it through, you can stick it over. The handle's on a hinge, so if you want to tip it up or down a little bit, you can. And if you want to take it right out of his hand, which I might as well, because it just popped out as soon as I said that, you can flip the handle up, you flip the scope down, and you collapse the barrel, and then you can take this little tab right here, and you can stick it onto the arm right there, and sometimes it'll even stay on. Can we get it to stay on? There we go. So you can't have it in like a completely flat position like this, because it's going to fall out. But if you have the arm tipped up like you'd normally have an arm tipped, it should hold in pretty alright. So, well, let's try this again. There we go. Hang on, let's see if we can get it to... There we go. Yeah, so tuck it behind the wing a bit, straighten out the arm, keep it straight, and it should be fine. And it actually looks pretty cool once it's on there. I'm quite a fan of that look. And before we go on to the big final accessory, or I guess final two accessories, there's a couple big ones at the end, but before we get to those, one last thing I got to show you, and this is a weapon that is built into the mobile suit, and this is the beam sabers. They're holstered right here in the hip skirts, and you get a pair of blades for them, and if you want, you can actually take the blade and stick it right in here and give them like some hip lasers. You can actually take these blades and they will fit inside the barrel of the rifle, so you can use this rifle as a beam saber, I think, or maybe it's just supposed to be like a beam effect shot. I'm not really sure, but it is pretty cool. And finally, the big boy itself, the Super Ultra Hyper Super Duper Mega Launcher. This thing's huge, it's cool, you can collapse it in, you can extend it out, this piece pops up and down. I'm not sure what this is. It doesn't really look like a scope. I mean, maybe it's a handle so we can hold it like this, but it doesn't have a tab so we can't actually hold it there. You can hold it here though, it's got a tab here. And then if you flip these panels open on the sides, there's one of these on each side. There's a handle here and a handle on the other side, so you know, if you want to have him sort of double holding it and bracing it against his chest, you could, except for the fact that there's no slots on these, so you can't actually tab them into his hands, which I'm honestly not sure why they didn't put slots in there. That seems like a pretty big oversight on their part. Well, so I tried for a little while to get this guy into a good pose with this Hyper Super Ultra Duper Mega Launcher, and I couldn't do it. There is a lot of weight on that little tab that goes in the hand, and it's kind of tough to get it there in the first place since, again, 2.0 hands, and you can't really do a double-handed pose because of the way the side handles are designed. So what I went with instead is I actually did have him using that handle, and it's just kind of, he's just kind of standing up next to him, showing off his big cool gun. And you know what? That's probably the only way I'd pose it with him anyways, because if it was actually fully extended straight out in front of him, that would be a lot of shelf space to be taken up by one kit. And the final accessory included in the kit is this massive display stand. It's shaped like the flight or launch catapult of the Argama, and it's pretty darn cool. You can actually pull this section off, and these kind of tip up, or they fold back down. There's some really nice detail on this, quite frankly more than there is in the rest of the kit. If you pop these up, you can slide it in front here, and actually slide it the whole length, and once you get to the back, you can tap these down. If you, I haven't actually tried putting his feet in the base yet, but I'm going to try it right now on camera for you guys, and yeah, okay, so his feet fit on the base fine. They don't really clip in anywhere, they just kind of sit there, but you know, it's still kind of neat that it can do that. But if you want your flight catapults to be anything more than just a big chunk of black plastic, you're going to have to do a little transformation on this thing. So, you pop this off, and you stick your fingernail under here, and you just lift up. You get this thing. And what can you do with this? Well, you stick it in here, lock it into place, and at this point you can take the flight deck and just stick it in front somewhere because the hypothetical Gundam is taking off at this point. And then you flip it over to the underside, and hey look, we got a secret compartment here, and in here we got two different attachments you can put on it. The first one here is actually for attaching the Gundam Mark II 2.0. This attaches into the back skirt where the bazooka would normally be stored. This allows you to attach the Mark II to this flight stand. In addition to that, these little hexagonal ports here allow you to attach the maintenance bay that came with the Mark II to this to make one big Argama diorama. The second piece you get is actually variable in position. You can take out this little piston and kind of adjust where you want it to be. It's pretty cool. It's kind of similar to the Action Base 2 or the Action Base 1. And this just clips around the waist of the figure. It is a really sturdy connection. A little too sturdy, in fact, as when I had to remove it for this, I felt like I was going to break this front clip because it goes on there really tight. But you just take this, you pop it right down into there, just like that, and then you take the Gundam and you clip it right into that, and you are good to go. And with the Zeta Gundam attached to the flight stand, he is now fully ready and equipped to look down on all his foes, including those that forget his accessories. And that's a category that I would fall under because I completely forgot about these things until I flipped over to the display stand. What these are is little missile packs or ammo packs or some kind of little pod thing, and you can take these and you can pop these right on where the rifle and shield go. They just pop in right there, and they'll help kind of fill out the arm if you don't have one of those weapons attached. And what you can also do with these that's pretty cool is this works with the rifle and shield too. It's just a little more unwieldy, but if you grab here, and you're going to want to grab here because otherwise it's going to push the two sides apart and the hinge is going to separate. But you slide this down and it pushes that hatch open, and you open it up the rest of the way, and it exposes a little pair of wrist Vulcans, which I think is a very cool little touch, and I really like that they threw that in. It's a little rickety, but it's pretty awesome. Also, there are actual missiles sculpted inside this. It's not easy to take this apart though, and you only see them when you're building it, so if you want to see these, go check out the build log if you haven't already, because that's the only place I'm showing them off. And finally, you do get little pilot and flight deck attendant little figurines. You already saw these guys earlier in that little skit I did, but again, just to show you, they're little detailed upper gamma crew members, and that is pretty darn cool. I especially like how they give you the extra guys with this guy with the sticks. And yes, I did paint his sticks, they don't come in red. And now it's time for the moment I've been dreading from the get-go. As soon as I put this kit in my shopping cart, I was like, you know what? When I review this thing, I'm going to have to transform it. And transform it I shall. Now, I've transformed this once before, and I didn't transform it all the way to the end, but I got far enough that I think I have a pretty good idea of what I'm doing. Hopefully. So starting up here at the head, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take these fins and you just kind of push them up. And they're on two separate hinges, not one like the real graves, so they're not going to be flopping about. They're just going to be held in like that. And then you're going to want to tilt the head back just about as far as it goes. And then you're going to want to go down here a little bit, and I'm just going to pan this out to make it a little easier for you to see, but basically, you lift the chest up, you lift the cockpit section up. You want to keep it tilted down this way because you're going to have just enough clearance to get this over the head. In order to help with that, you can take the head itself and you just push the neck thing down. You want to flip this clip out and just get the whole thing down as far as you can. Make sure the V-fins are straightened. If you have everything lined up just right, you'll have just enough space to do what I just did there and slide it over the V-fin. If you do it wrong like I did in the build log, you're going to break something. After that, you're just going to grab onto these two pieces here at the abdomen and just kind of bring them up to meet up with the rest of the kit. That'll also straighten up the waist and kind of solidify it in place so it won't be flopping about in vehicle mode. After that, you're going to want to tilt the arms out just about as far as they go. And then you're going to take the shoulders and you're going to swing them in. Now, here's where the fun begins. So the waist on the Zeta Gundam is designed in several different components, and you're going to have to basically separate apart all of them in order to get the transformation done right. Now the first one is the essential one. This is the one the Victory Gundam needed, the Victory 2 Gundam needed, even the Delta Plus needed, but unfortunately none of them had. Because if you pop this piece forward, this little front waist skirt piece right here that I actually cannot pop forward while it's on the stand, so hold on a second. Okay, so let's try that again. So, this one front section here, if you lift up the front skirts so you can get a good look in there, this piece is what's clipping these two sections together. As soon as that's off, you can free up the legs to do all sorts of crazy stuff. So, you want to lift this up, and you're going to want to tuck in the front skirts to fold in nice and tight beside it, and just kind of leave this floating up here. You're going to want to drop these down, and these whole sections you're going to kind of want to manipulate up out of the way, but in order to get them up there, you're going to have to separate these off of their ball joints and then swing them out on their little hinge mechanisms and bring them out. And this is where the fun begins, because you kind of have to take the two parts in the kit that have the most joints on them and try to kind of finagle them past each other so each one ends up where the other was. But before that, you're going to want to take this tail down here just so you have a little bit of room to work. So, flipping this back to the front, I'm going to take the legs here, and I'm going to separate them, and they're on a ball joint right there, and I'm going to just try to swing this stuff out of the way as much as I can, and just rotate it up. And as I'm rotating it up, I'm going to try to swing this down, and swing it through. And I've only done this once before, so I could be doing this in completely the wrong order and making myself look like an absolute idiot. But it looks like I have just enough clearance to take this little hook right here where my fingernail is. I'm not sure you can see that. Hopefully you can. It's kind of getting dark out now, but you should be able to clip that right up in there, and then you do that on the other side, and then after that, you take this back skirt and you push it down, and it tabs in here and tabs in here, and it holds the whole section together. Okay, so now that I got that all connected together, I'm going to take the wings and I'm going to swing them down, and you're going to want to tip them in and just kind of rotate them up. And right now we're just going to want to bring them up around the arms. We're going to rotate them all the way around and lock everything into place later, but first we got to get the legs situated. So after this, what we're going to do is we're going to rotate the legs back, and then we're going to swing these little hip skirts around to join them. And Again, this is where I don't like how stiff the hip joints are, because they tend to spread themselves apart, and I'm not really a huge fan of that. But after this stuff's all down here, I think at this point actually I can flip the arms in, so I'm just going to curl the hands into fists, and then I'm going to take the arms and I'm going to flatten them up against here. I'm going to take the waist section, I'm going to drop it down in, and it should fit over there nice and fine. And then I'm going to take the wings here, and there's going to be a bit of transformation here because I'm going to push in on the little ball joint, and that'll pop this out, and this whole thing will kind of double joint out, and then I can reach in underneath and push out this little piece that helps cover up the gap there. And then you flip out this wing, and basically there's a crevice in here that just kind of slides over the wings. I'm not going to do it completely on camera, so I'm just going to come back when it's all done, and hopefully it'll go well. Oh yes, and one final thing before I do that. You're going to want to take these side thrusters and take them from here to here. So you just take them, you push them, you fold them in, and that'll get them out of the way of the wings. And here we go. So, flipping this thing around to the top, we can see it's already starting to look a bit more like a jet. We're going to want to make sure this guy isn't grabbing onto his back thrusters like that, so just tuck these all in. Sorry if anything's off camera here. This is a very big mess to keep on camera, so I'm just doing my best to keep it in frame as much as possible. But we're going to take the legs and we're going to tip them down here at the hips and make sure that's all straight, and then we're going to swing the front skirts forward and onto here. So make sure this is all straight. Flip the front skirts forward and onto here, and make sure you're all tabbed in nice and tight, and that you're attached right here. And again, as you can see right there, the hips have a tendency to separate. Okay, so I came very close to absolutely destroying the polycap there when I tried to get it back together, so I had to rip the whole thing apart, kind of smooth the polycap back into place, put it all back together, and hopefully it shouldn't spread apart too much, because I'm going to try to not mess with the hips too much from this point onwards. So, now the biggest thing we got left to do is the knees. So you're going to want to take the legs, and you're going to want to extend them here, and extend them here. So you're just going to want them extended at both places right now. I think we will be collapsing part of them. And again, panels liking to separate on the legs is a common theme with this kit, which is a bit of a shame. Make sure this is pushed in. You're going to want to tip the legs up, and then you're going to want to take them at the knee, and you're going to want to kind of break his knee and swing them forwards. And it's very tough to do this right. I find I just have to like fiddle at it until I eventually get it. And there we go. There we go. So I got it down in, and now it's just a matter of straightening out the feet, pushing that flap under his foot, and I guess at this point you can actually push the foot inwards and it'll expose the thrusters. So again, on the other side here, you want to tip it back all the way to here, make sure this is pushed down, and make sure the leg itself is extended out, which I think it is. Good. So bend it in, push this in, and just kind of wiggle at everything until okay, so what happened there is this piece just kind of came unclipped in there, so I just popped this top section off, and it gives you a nice little access hatch so you can get down there, and if anything comes unclipped or sometimes comes off, like I've had the kneecaps coming off inside there before, you can just pull it open, and it's like a little maintenance hatch so you can get in there and fish out whatever went wrong. Now, at this point we're pretty much done, or at least this is as far as I've gotten with it before. All that's really left at this point is to attach the shield underneath as a sort of skid barrier. So I'm going to need to set this down for a second just to show you basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to extend this, and then there's a pair of clips right here, and if you look at the underside of the Zeta Gundam, there's a pair of little nubs right there, and then there's another clip right here, and that's going to clip into something in here, actually this little clip right here, and those three connection points should create a pretty solid connection, so this should be able to sit in there nice and tight. Well, now I know what I'm not doing ever again after I shoot this review, and that is transforming this thing, because, oh boy, was that a nightmare. So, there's several points this connects in other than those I mentioned. The tab for the handle, you're supposed to kind of flip it up and it kind of scoots behind the head. You're going to want to make sure you tip the head forward. So you had it tip back before so you get the chest over. You want to tip it forward so it doesn't interfere with the connection tab on the shield as you're sliding everything in. And it's also supposed to clip in here at the front, but I could not get that in. And I messed with it for a little while. I was like, you know what? Close enough. It looks like a flight thing. It looks pretty alright as it is. I'm just going to leave it as is. Only thing I'm going to do at this point is take the gun, all fold it up, so scope in, handle in, barrel in. I'm going to grab onto this. I'm going to flip it out. And I'm going to pop it right on here. There we go. Only other thing I could do at this point is probably attach the Hyper Mega Launcher, but I guess I'll do that in another clip because right now I'm just going to sit for a second and just marvel at how cool this looks. And it actually does. Like, it's pretty worth it. I mean, if we slide down here and get an underside shot, there is pretty much no evidence that this was ever a mobile suit thanks to the shield covering up the face. And I have to say, while this is a nightmare to transform, the flight mode is pretty awesome as well, and I think it definitely gets points for not being a complete floppy mess like the Delta Plus or the Victory. So in order to attach the Hyper Mega Launcher, you're going to want to take off this little red piece right there from the shield. You're going to want to take the gun, you're going to want to collapse everything up, and you're going to want to flip out this little peg. And then you kind of hook that hook over the back of the shield, this little hook right here. And then you're going to take this tab right here, pop into that hole. Or alternatively, you could actually do it the other way around and just pop the tab in first and not bother with the hook since it's actually a pretty sturdy connection. So, Zeta Gundam, Wave Rider, all loaded up. Final thoughts on this kit. I'm not really sure I could recommend it or dissuade you from getting it because it really depends on how much you like the Zeta Gundam. This isn't really a kit I greatly enjoyed building, and as you've seen from the last few minutes, or possibly even 10 or 15 minutes, I have no idea how long it took me to transform this absolute monster. But the transformation's not very fun, and it's not something I'm necessarily going to ever do again with this kit. But you know what? Looking at here in flight mode, it is pretty darn cool. And if you're willing to step up to the challenge of building an older master grade that has some really complicated engineering that has both its ups and downs, then yeah, I'd recommend going for it. If you're a beginner looking for a representation of your favorite Gundam, I'd probably wait until Bandai puts out a high-grade revive, because there is some serious complexity to this kit, plus you got the nub marks to deal with, the transformation's really complicated, and overall, I mean, even looking at this compared to a modern master grade, it's really lacking in the articulation department, especially in those outward movement on the hips and shoulders. Unfortunately, I do have to reluctantly agree with the general consensus that this is the best version of the Zeta Gundam just because, well, sadly, there isn't a whole lot of competition for that title. So yeah, I really can't say one way or another on this kit. If after watching this whole thing you think it's a kit you want to get, then absolutely, go get it. If you kind of are having second thoughts on it, you might want to pass on it. Personally, I thought it was alright, but anyway, before I ramble on too far, I hope I haven't bored the 7 people that have actually watched this far. If you're there, hi, I don't know, type something funny in the comments. Or maybe something insightful if you built this kit, if there's something I missed, or there was something I'm doing wrong, please let me know. I would like to know more about this kit if there's some cool little functions or anything that I missed when I was filming this. Anyway, if this is the first one of my videos you've seen, first of all, I apologize for it being this long freaking mess. Second of all, please subscribe because there's more stuff coming that'll be hopefully a little less long-winded than this. And, you know, I'll try to keep doing build logs, I'll try to keep doing unboxings, I'll definitely keep doing reviews, and I'll always keep doing Gunpla news. So if any of that interests you, hit that subscribe button. If you're already here, cool, awesome, join the team. I'm Second Soundwave, and I'll be seeing you next time.